For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. We all, like sheep, have gone astray. Each of us has turned to our own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before its shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth.
Well, who would have believed me if a year ago I had predicted that this year's Little Heath Carol service was going to have to take place online? Who would have believed me if a year ago I'd told you that students wouldn't be going into school for the whole of the summer term? Who would have believed me if I'd told you that Year 11 students wouldn't even take their GCSE examinations, or Year 13 students take their A-levels? who would have believed me a year ago if I'd told you that a 100-year-old army veteran was going to raise over £30 million for the NHS just by walking up and down his garden? Who would have believed me if a year ago I had predicted that my football team, Leeds United, was going to get promoted as champions to the Premiership? As unbelievable as all those things are, apart from perhaps the last one, they have all come to be true. During our carol service, we normally sing several carols and hear several readings reminding us of that first Christmas story. We've not been able to do that quite in the same way this year, but I'm sure many of you know the story. And if we think about that story for a moment, there's quite a few elements to that story that if you'd have gone and told any of the characters a year before what was going to happen, they wouldn't have believed you either. Would Joseph have believed you if you'd have told him that a year later an angel would appear and put to rest his worries about his fiancée's unfaithfulness when she told him she was expecting a child? I doubt it. I wonder, would Mary have believed you if a year earlier you'd told her she was going to have a baby? Any baby, never mind the Son of God. And would she have believed you if you'd told her that actually Joseph, despite the circumstances, would stand by her? I don't think so. I wonder if you'd told the innkeeper a year in advance to build an extension, to go up several more floors, because in a year's time his inn would be in demand for accommodation and he could have filled all the rooms 3 times over. Would he have made the investment? It's unlikely. I wonder if the shepherds would have believed you if you'd warned them that one night as they were out on the hillside watching their flocks, they were about to have a close encounter of the angelic kind. I'd be very surprised. And I wonder if you'd told King Herod that some visiting wise men would come knocking on his door with gifts fit for a king, but then tell him that they were looking for a baby and the gifts weren't for him. He'd have laughed at them. And yet, a year later, those things came to pass. Verified by biblical and non-biblical sources. Jesus was born. It's all enough to make you wonder what is believable and what is unbelievable. The 2 readings that we have listened to today come from an Old Testament prophet called Isaiah, who in his day made some pretty unbelievable statements about what was going to happen. The first few verses that Eva read for us spoke of a coming king. A king who would come and, it sounds like, sort everything out. This in itself might sound unbelievable, but if I explain to you what was going on at the time, we'd understand quite how unbelievable it was. You see, when Isaiah was writing, the people were in a kind of lockdown themselves. Some were literally locked down in prison because they'd been taken away from Jerusalem and were being held captive in another country. Those that remained in Jerusalem lived under the occupation of a foreign army, and so their freedom was limited. Many families were isolated from each other. They hadn't seen relatives for days, weeks, months, even years in some cases. And their normal lives had been interrupted. Education was affected. Cultural events weren't able to take place. Social and religious gatherings were banned. The people Isaiah was speaking to were lonely, isolated, anxious, depressed, had very little hope for the future. So when Isaiah talks of a coming king who is going to make everything wonderful and bring peace and justice, and that they'd all live happily ever after, then we can understand why the people probably didn't believe him. And yet, in the birth of Christ, many years later, we look back on Isaiah's words and we hear them in our Christmas carol services each year. We begin to recognize the person of Jesus. Unto us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Mighty Counselor, Wonderful God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. The second Isaiah reading is one that's not normally heard at Christmas carol services. It's more likely that we would listen to it at Easter time, and the self-sacrificial, love-revealing actions of Jesus on the cross. But it is still very much part of the same salvation story. We all, like sheep, have gone astray, each of us to his own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter. It's unlikely that anyone believed Isaiah at the time. Crikey, even Jesus' own disciples, who he spoke to and warned about what was going to happen, they didn't believe him either. And yet, it did happen. And yet, it did take place. It's all enough to make you wonder what is believable and what is unbelievable. That God should come and choose to live amongst us. That God reveals his love for us so much that he would come down from heaven and be born in a stable. That Jesus should live and die and rise from the dead to demonstrate how powerful God's love for us is. So powerful that even death cannot separate us from it. I wonder. I believe. May you all have an unbelievably wonderful Christmas this year, and greetings from all of us at Tilehurst Methodist Church.
Hello, it's lovely to be able to offer my vote of thanks as head teacher for this year's Little Heath School Carol service. This annual event has become such a huge highlight for us here at Little Heath that we couldn't allow COVID-19 to get in the way. I'm sure you'll agree with me that all of the hard work has been putting the video together has been more than worth it. Hopefully, watching the video will help you to kickstart your Christmas in a really positive way, in the way that it has for me. I'd like to thank a few people specifically, if I may, for their contribution to the video. I'll start with Eva, who selected and performed all of the readings on behalf of Little Heath Christian Union. Thank you to her. I'd like to thank Little Heath Soul Choir specifically, including some former members of the Soul Choir who returned for us for that performance, socially distanced version of O Holy Night, which was wonderful, arranged and directed by Miss Hancock, so thanks to her. All of the audio was recorded and mixed by Miss Hancock and by Miss Hill, who's our fabulous music technician here at Little Heath. I'd like to thank Miss Nicholson and Mr. Harris for the work that they've done on the filming. The video editing as well was done by Miss Nicholson. As ever, our warmest thanks go out to Reverend Moffat, who has recorded a personal message for us to include in the video. Always very grateful to him for the support he shows to us as a school. I'd also like to take the opportunity to announce the winners of our annual Christmas card competition run by the Little Heath Art Department for a number of years now. The standard's been fabulous this year. I think people really wanting to celebrate Christmas because of how strange the term has been and have really put their energies into that artwork. Really difficult to choose this year, the winners, but we've managed to do that. We awarded highly commended to 3 students, so congratulations to Tommy from 7 DCA, Ruby from 7 SBO and Keely from 7 PHU. They were all awarded highly commended. Third place went to Caitlin from 7 CEA, second place to Rosie for 7 DCA, and the winner with a fabulously original sketch of a deer in a winter landscape was Alexandro from 9 HLI. Alexandro actually came second last year, so he's gone one step better to win the competition. A huge congratulations to him and to all of the other students who entered the competition. It was really lovely to see their entries. And to close, from me, I really hope you enjoy the video as much as I have, and I hope you're able to enjoy a warm, enjoyable and hopefully restful family Christmas this holiday. Best festive wishes to you all.